very sorry for the technical issues. I had put in the wrong date yesterday when I sent out the link and changed the date. I didn't realize it would change the link also. So that is totally my bad. But if you ever do that in Zoom, know that you have to update your link. So I might have saved you some embarrassment down the road there. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Tanner, again. Good evening, Danielle.
Hi, good evening.
Okay. Good evening, Ben. Good evening, Mariah. Okay. I think we are just waiting. Oh, Frank, good evening. I missed you there. my ocean of people. Okay. Thank you again, everyone. I'm so sorry for the technical difficulties. We will jump right in. We'll just start over since we'll just take that as a little bit of a rehearsal. Thank you for joining the June 15th, 2022 VSWEA board meeting. I will start with the opening verse and then we'll move into introductions. The true aim of education is to awaken real powers of perception and judgment in relation to life and living. For only such an awakening can lead to true freedom. Rudolf Steiner. I'll start the introductions. My name is Kirsten Kabina. I am the board president, technically challenged, and the mother of 2 children at Desert Marigold. And I will read from left to right. Dan, you're up first this time.
My name is Dan Franks. I'm the board treasurer, and I have 3 children in Waldorf education, next year 4.
Thank you. Nellie.
Nellie Grosenbacher, board member and parent of 4 children at DMS.
Thank you. Mr. Tanner.
John Tanner, board member.
Danielle.
Hi, good evening. Danielle Martinez, board member.
April.
Hi, April Sauer, board secretary.
Mariah.
Hi, everyone. Mariah Moon, mom of 2 and board member.
Ben.
Hi, all. Ben Fong, board member, and I'm going to be keeping my camera off because I threw out my back recently and I am laying down.
Thank you, Ben. And I don't believe Mr. Edwards is going to be able to join us this evening. Hopefully he can join us soon and catch up. And we also have 3 guests joining us for our board meeting this evening. Michelle, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself first? And we'll kind of go around the horn there too.
Sure. My name is Michelle Kratzer, and I am parent council chair. And for this night, well, most days, I am also the animal care coordinator. I have 3 kids at Desert Marigold from 5th, 6th grade to 11th grade. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. And Sophie.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sophie McCurley, and I've been helping with the development plan for next year, and I have 3 children at DMS.
Thank you. And last but not least, Frank, I'll go ahead and have you introduce yourself, and then we can jump right on into your updates.
Good evening, everybody. I'm the proud executive director at DMS, and I will move right into the updates. I'm going to start with one small piece of bad news and then go into a whole lot of good news. Some bad news is today we got word that our 2nd grade teacher has resigned due to a family issue that is going to cause her to move to Tucson and take care of a family member. Of course, this is not good news. We are saddened because we know this person very well in our community. She's a parent in our community, and we feel for the situation she's in. And also, we now need a 2nd grade teacher. And so today I spent almost the whole day looking through applications trying to get some interviews set up. That's our piece of bad news for today. Good news, we have lots of good news. Our training has started, our summer teacher training. I want to thank openly Michelle and Laura and Parent Council for being a major sponsor of this event, as well as showing up in the mornings and making sure there's treats and lunch and just being a great hostess to this event. I want to thank Bonnie as well, as she does a lot of setting up in the morning for it. And it's going very well. Our trainers are doing a great job. Our people in the actual training are participating and communicating, and it's all excellent stuff. The board, I did send you a packet a couple days ago, so you could, if you open that packet, you can see the actual calendar of the training and the topics that we are leading the teaching on, and they are all relevant topics as proposed to me by our trainers and by Joan and by Peter. They played a big role in developing this program. And so far, so good. It's only day 3, but I'm not going to wood. So far, so good. We're off to a good start. So this is possibly our last meeting of the year. There is a chance we'll squeeze one more in June because we have to approve the budget the second time. But if that doesn't happen, I want to make sure I spend a few minutes, first and foremost, to thank the board for muddling through what turns out to be an excellent year. I know we had things to work through, starting with COVID and a couple of teachers resigning in the beginning of the year, but we ended the year very strong. I thank the board for the support for me as a director and for our staff. And moving forward, we have lots to be excited about. Let me start with a list of accomplishments that you as a board have allowed and supported to happen. First, let's talk about enrollment. We started the year with 287. That's what we budgeted on. And in a COVID year, we only lost 5 students. 282 students is what we finished with. That is truly remarkable. And as of today, there are 307 students enrolled with 12 packets out for completion, meaning they have been contacted and told they have a spot. Finish your paperwork and you're in. That would bring us to 319. I think that's a high in the last 3 years. I think you have to go back 5 or 6 years to where we were in the 319, 320, 321 range. So that's a good feeling because that's automatic funding. Any way you look at it, that's funding that comes to us from the state that can be used for things that we absolutely need. I also want to brag that we ended the year a week ago fully staffed for next year. Of course, that changed on Monday afternoon. But I'm hopeful that I will find someone in the next 5 to 7 days for second grade. I still feel really good about all of our new hires. We have an interview tomorrow morning with a counselor. And I hear great things about this counselor. That interview is tomorrow morning. Hopefully this is someone we might choose. We have a package that has been put together that is going to allow us budgetary wise to give an increase to our staff members, all staff members. And that's an outstanding position to be in. And that's even prior to the governor releasing a budget, which could give us more money. So I'm excited about that. Board members, that is in your official packet that I sent to you as well. So you'll be able to see the 4 or 5 things we are doing in the way of compensation and salary and benefits for our staff members. We have this year added choir. Next year, we are adding Spanish in 7th and 8th grade. We are adding a Waldorf teacher doing topics like form drawing, art, and music in grades 1 through 6. We are adding sustainability and business courses at the high school. And that's some of our programming changes that are additions that we're very proud of. Those are things that you were part of discussions and part of making happen, and I thank you for that. I give a lot of credit to my staff members in LDC who also were a big part of saying, let's do this, let's try this, in efforts to constantly improve what we offer to students on campus. This year, we added a curriculum director, thanks to you. Dr. Darian has been a godsend for me and a right-hand man for me, and I'm very happy that he's staying on board with us again for next year. I'm proud to say that all staff, every single staff member, received an evaluation. Certified teachers or teaching staff received 2 evaluations, which is what we're supposed to be doing by law. And I'm proud to say we are doing that. That took place this year. I'm also happy to report that all of our classroom teachers over a grade or a high school topic are either state certified or have taken the test to be highly qualified by the state. I give my staff a lot of credit for moving in that direction. And with a little help and cajoling, they took care of it. And I feel really good going into next year that at this point, I need to find a second grade teacher that has that one of those qualifications as well. We also completed a successful contemplation that started sometime this month, a year ago. And that went very well. Overall, our goals were achieved. Our 3 pillars are communicating and taking care of the roles that were given to them. And finally, we returned to the pentathlon games, the medieval games, the 8th grade trip, the high school trip. We elected more board members and expanded our board. And every 3rd grade student, according to the Move On When Reading, passed the state test. And I've heard from a couple board members, this is the first time in several years that you didn't have to approve a letter to the parents explaining your student didn't pass and you need to go into some type of remediation. Every one of our 3rd grade students passed, and this is excellent news, especially since we were in and out of COVID all year and online and in person and all of that silliness that came with that. So I'm very proud to announce that. That's all. I'm going to stop there. I wanted to brag a little bit about all those accomplishments from this year and in heading into planning for next year. We're all very excited to see what the fall brings, late summer brings. In a year that hopefully our pandemic is behind us and we get back to real normalcy and doing what we do best, which is educate kids. So thank you again to each of you. I appreciate all your help. That's all I have unless there's questions.
I have a few questions, Frank, and I'm sorry I'm not in town to make tea for teachers.
Danielle, you're on mute.
I didn't move my cursor and it auto muted. Frank, I don't know if you heard me. I said, I'm sorry I'm not in town to make tea for everyone.
Oh, that's right. You did that. Are you back next week? Because we're on next week too.
No.
Darn, that tea was awesome. I remember that.
I wanted to ask about the teacher training. I heard that they weren't welcoming community members, and I was wondering why that is when these could be potential teachers for DMS or other schools. It doesn't sound like inclusivity, and wondering why it would be us versus them. Can you answer that? What am I missing?
Well, the whole idea of inviting people who were not on staff was because we were worried we weren't taking in enough money from people paying. And so Michelle and I talked to try and increase the money by getting others who might want to pay to go. And we reached a point when we were up to 19 signed up that we didn't think it was a good idea to go ahead and open that at that point. We did have a couple of parents express interest, and I did call them personally and talk to them and explain what had taken place, and we didn't want it to be overfilled. Now it ends up we started on Monday, and we have 2 teachers from Tucson with COVID. They are attending by Zoom, even though we don't like that. We didn't want to tell them they couldn't come, and we certainly couldn't fault them for contracting COVID.
So we would be able to open up those spots to those parents? Like, why would we turn
now
away dollars?
they've missed 3 days now, so we're not going to do that.
Okay. Why would
These
we
are
ever?
full 8-hour trainings, so.
Why would we ever turn away dollars?
It's a little bit more complex to that, and not something I think I should answer in an open meeting.
Okay, we can talk out. Thank you. And for the you use the word completed, so I want to reiterate that contemplation's ongoing. I still see some challenges. We know we had some recent conflicts where compromises weren't easily reached with board members and parent community, and also with the teacher training. Again, without including the community, I think we still have some work to do. Just wanted to, the verb usage completed, we're ongoing or in process. That was all my questions. Thank you, Frank.
Okay.
Frank, I don't have a question. I just have a comment to you and to the whole community. I think I'm amazed, and I love hearing all the good feedback. I think we went through adversity, as everyone did, with the pandemic, and there are a lot of agencies, a lot of schools that are not landing in resiliency. So I'm really excited for all the updates, and thank you for all of your leadership.
Thank you.
I'll jump onto that, Mariah. I'm also just so impressed with all of your good work, Frank. I know that you're very good about also letting other people take credit for their help and achievements, but I think you really powered through a really difficult year, and it's amazing what's been accomplished, and I'm really excited to see just where we go as a whole next year. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, well, let's move on. Michelle, I believe you're up next with our DMS animals.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Is it possible that I could share my screen?
Yes. Do I have to give you access to do so? Probably. Let me see if I can make you a co-host.
Let me check.
Okay. Oh, great. We can see your screen.
Awesome. All right. So a few board members have mentioned that they don't know anything about the animals. So I'm here to help and give some information about them to those that regularly also interact with them. Please feel free to put in any of your tidbits. Also, Kirsten, Nellie, Danielle. Also, thank you all for your help too. So let's see. So this is Spammy. She came to us from the Hormel family. Jerry Hormel was on the show My Super Sweet 16 in 2017. And Spammy was a baby piglet that was her special birthday present for that. Spammy was not her name when she came to us in April of 2012. It was the name that the kids at DMS picked out for her. Spammy loves water and she loves mud. She also loves to knock over her water bucket. She will do this if you're just not fast enough at giving her her food. Her regular diet is some pig pellets and scraps or a couple cans of green beans. Then we have George. This is George. He came to DMS with his twin sister in February of 2018 when they were just babies. George loves to eat. He loves to get out of his stall and make sure he gets treats or food before anyone else, or he tries. Sometimes he succeeds, but he's a funny guy. He's sometimes mean to Spammy, so he gets to go to bed by himself in his own separate stall. This is Luna. This is George's twin sister. She likes tight spaces and loves to climb. She does not like to be brushed, though. So if you ever see her, you will see her when you see her. In about the spring, when they start to lose their coat, she looks like she just has tufts of hair everywhere hanging off her body. And unfortunately, the only way for us to actually brush her is to trap her. And it feels so wrong sometimes. So sometimes we just let nature take its course and let the brushing or let the hair fall off on its own. These are little baby George and Luna when they came to us. George and Luna eat some alfalfa pellets and some scraps. Apples and carrots are some of their favorite things, but Luna can sometimes be a bit picky. She doesn't always, if you just give her alfalfa pellets, sometimes she's like, yeah, I'm just not going to eat today. So they also eat grass, which is given to them in that little trough that Luna was laying in the previous slide. She likes to either knock that out or eat it all and get it that way. This is Chicory. He came to DMS as a rescue. He was actually slaughtered for slaughter. But the rescue shelter got him just in time. He's a gentle giant. He is the guy that if a kid is having a hard time, he calms them down every time. He loves to be brushed and he loves to go for walks. He's just the sweetest. I can't. And then we have Champ. He came to us from the same rescue as Chicory, but he came a month later. His mom was the rescue, though. She gave birth to him at the miniature horse rescue. He's very confident that he's the ruler of the barn. He can be heard throughout the campus if Chicory gets to go for a walk without him. He likes to be brushed. If Chicory is getting brushed, sometimes he likes to do things on his own time, basically. Let's see. They both love the pond area, though, so. Champ and Chicory are on restricted diets. They're only supposed to eat grass. They love to go out to their corral in the agricultural field to do so. But they also get fed in a similar trough and other hay feeders in the barn. We have 5 resident ducks. Let's see, we have the 4 on the left are Potato, Shiva, Vishnu, Zinnia. And then another regular, I don't see her on there, is Butter. She came to us from a community member. And the other 4 were hatched at the school. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. Unfortunately, just go back to that, sorry. We also had a goose. We had a few geese, and we lost them this year. So that's sad news about that part. The DMS chicken coop has about 15 chickens right now. Every year we lose some from our extreme weather. That heat really gets to them some days. And then sometimes it's even the cold weather, and they're quite old also, the ones in the coop right now. We'll soon gain at least 10 more, and possibly more depending on how many chicks are coming over from the 4th grade. So we have several different programs in DMS that each of the grades help with. We start off with an actual job in 3rd grade. So grade 3 feeds the animals every morning. Well, actually, sorry, that's incorrect. It's Tuesday through Friday. They do all of the feeding. They make sure that the waters are replaced and clean. They also pick up all of the horse poop throughout the yard, and that is probably one of the fought over jobs to do, and not to not do it. They actually fight over who gets to pick up horse poop for the day. So it's a very fun thing to help them with. They create amazing bonds with the animals, and it's the stewardship. They get to take care of community members. In grade 4, they raise chicks to replace those that have aged out of the coop. They typically will hatch eggs in the springtime, and then they will join the coop by the end of the year. They should be joining the coop this year. It's a little later than normal, but they hatched 11 chicks. Actually, technically, they hatched 13 chicks. Unfortunately, a couple of them did not survive past the first couple of days, which unfortunately happens. So, fifth grade raises ducks, and this year the fifth grade teacher chose runner ducks. They tend to stand up a little bit taller and are a bit bigger. They lay a lot of eggs, but they're not sitters. They don't sit on their eggs that often. So there is a nest in the pond area, but they we don't always see them laying on it. So they also helped with the duck island. Like I said, we lost Chocolate, our beloved goose. We also lost another duck. We called him Turducken or Red or many other things. And we lost another goose, Matilda, before that. And actually in 2019, we lost Marshmallow, another goose. So we were sad and everybody was sad at how many losses we had. So the fifth grade helped with the duck island that you can see floating in the middle of the pond now. And they are using it. It's not typically, you don't see them during the day, but I've been there in the middle of the, not in the middle of the night, but in the evening, and they've been on there, and it's really exciting to see that they're using it. They hopefully use that to not become a victim. Grade 6 feeds the chickens, and they also collect their eggs every day. Sorry, I don't have many pictures of them. I just realized they feed them, make sure their water is changed, check for anything around that might not be going right. They are, during the hot days, they also will turn on the misters for them. And that is something that they are independent on. We show them as a class, and then they take care of it at that age. They also are responsible for cleaning out the coop, the hen house to be exact. It starts to get pretty bad in there after a while. One thing that I forgot to mention about the chickens, there was actually an egg that must have gone unnoticed for a while, as I got a text that did you know there's a baby chick inside the coop? And not the size of the other chicks that fourth grade raised, but a very baby chick, and this little chick follows its mommy everywhere, and that mommy is very good. She protects it from all of the other chicks. It's the cutest thing to watch. Grade 7, they do muck outs. They try to make the best out of a not always fun thing to do. So that's a couple of them pushing the hay over to where we need it. They clean all of the stalls out, and then they also make sure that the yard is cleaned and the feed room is cleaned. It's very obvious that the animals enjoy it, probably Spammy more than anybody. She will get her little nose in there and bury herself as much as possible. Sometimes it does not matter if it's 120 degrees. She loves it. It's honestly, Kirsten and I have done muck outs together before, and we will sit there and wait for her to do that. It's one of her favorite things. It's one of her favorite times of the month. And then we have grade 8. They put together the horse stall, the corral, and they will move it a couple times a week. So it's together in the agricultural field. We actually have 2 different ones. One's a round pen, that's for training. And then we have a smaller stall, and that's for them to hang out in. That smaller stall is what needs to be moved on a regular basis. So the horses have something to graze on. It helps our agricultural field also to have that moved around, to have their manure in different places also. So it's good for them, good for the grounds, and it's good for the 8th graders to move those heavy things. So the animals, even though we start in 3rd grade with programs, it's really something that everybody is a part of. From preschool, they come in and give little treats to the animals every day. Spammy will make sure that she's out there every time. They will call Spammy if she doesn't come out. The younger grades also will take Chicory mostly out and around to be brushed and just loved upon. They are truly loved by all grades. The original intent for the horses was for high school to actually help with training and help them be therapy horses, so they could do what Chicory does very often. He helps kids get through a bad day, and many other things. We hope to still get back to that. That was almost being put out right before the pandemic, and then that happened, and many things stopped at that time. The animals cost about it's about $4,000 in feed, $1,000 in vet, just from 1,000 to 700 or so, just from their normal, their annual care to sick care. It costs about that much a year. And then supplies, and many other things. It basically comes out to about $7,000 a year. That's to feed, make sure they have clean bedding, and make sure that they have the supplies that they need. New fly masks need to be purchased every year, if not more, with certain ones that like to rub them off. I think that's about it. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, no questions, but yeah, thank you. That was really great. I really appreciate all the information and the stories of the different animals and their characters. Especially being so remote, I don't get to experience it until I come back.
Yeah. And Michelle, if I'm understanding correctly, the animals are fully funded by parents today. Is that correct?
Correct. So we do not take anything out of the budget. Technically, we can't take anything out of the budget. So they have been fully funded by volunteers. And then this year with the fundraiser, I don't have exact numbers on that yet, but that should cover us for the year.
Have food costs been going up? Just kind of the state of the world?
Yes. I would say that is, I'm trying to think of how much they've gone up.
Yeah, if I was just thinking that instead of planning for 7,000, probably should be planning for like 8,000, for example.
Right. Yeah.
Just assuming.
Yes. That is also, the horses need regular farrier treatment. They get 8 every 6 weeks, I believe it is. They get their hooves trimmed. So that's another one. And it reminded me because of fuel costs, there's an added surcharge on that too. So everything's going up.
Yeah. It's actually less than I thought the animal care would have cost, honestly, with the amount of animals and everything we have there.
Now, we also bought that horse corral this year. So that was another $2,000. But that was a direct fundraiser. This is what we're buying it for. And people gave money directly to that. So.
Hey, Michelle or Frank, can I get a better understanding? Is it a choice that they're not part of the school, or that we couldn't tax them onto our budget? I guess I just wanted to get some more understanding and clarity as far as how are they their own entity? Do they have, how do they land within the world of DMS? And why wouldn't we be able to put them in the budget?
State law prohibits that as an expense. They give us a list of things that we are allowed to spend the state dollars on, and funding animals is not one of them, because we are not, like, there are equine schools that can do it because they petitioned to be an animal school when it opened. I don't know that we ever did that. And so we don't spend any dollars out of the state coffers unless they go to what the state says we can use them on. I do know that currently the parents who volunteer, when they want to raise money for the animals, they make it very clear that this is an animal fundraiser, so that people who want to be part of that make a choice to be part of that. And I've seen 2 of those fundraisers be very successful in doing that. And there's never a complaint or an allegation of, are you taking money from 3rd grade and giving it to Spammy? No, that is just not coming out of people's mouths. It is very clear that there are specific fundraisers for the animals, and that people who want to be part of that make a choice to be part of that. And I know that has worked out. I would rather see them do it that way than the volunteers themselves be stuck with $4,000 and $5,000 bills, which has happened. You need to know that has happened, and that is very hard on our handful of parents who take that on themselves, just because they have such a kind heart and love the animals and know the importance that our kids love the animals. And we do get families who go on that tour and say, I got to come here because of the animals. That's real. So you're not going to hear me say anything but, how can we support the animals? What other ways can we think of it, of fundraising for them specifically, and not put 2 or 3 parents behind an 8 ball to have to come up with $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 each to make this happen. Michelle, if you want to add to that, feel free.
I think we have questions from Ben and Dan as well.
Yeah, I was wondering how. So I'm assuming. Okay, so it's very common, right, for teachers to have class pets. Is that always out of their pocket because the state won't pay for it? I'm assuming.
Yeah. In any district I've ever been in, we do not pay for animals out of. There's no business department in any of the districts around us that would approve an expenditure like that, because it's not given to us for that purpose. Yeah. An auditor would catch that and say, what's this? Why do you have this?
Thank you, Michelle, for the presentation. One reason I was sort of like curious to know more about the animals is this came up at the last board meeting with regard to the development proposal, and I guess that last part that Mariah asked about is still the part that's confusing me, because if I'm hearing Frank correctly, then the sustaining fund that we're proposing, that we can't actually raise money for the animals as part of that, because that's money that's going to be part of the school budget, right? We're raising money directly for the school. So if that's the case, that means that animal care has to be. I'm still confused about where this lies exactly, but not through parent council, but not in the budget either. And I think the question is, from my perspective, I think that if we're going to talk about the animals in board meetings and give them consideration and figure out a fundraising plan for them, then that means that it's part of the board's considerations and we should see a formal budget and everything. If not, then it's more informal, and I think that's fine. It sounds like that's the way it needs to be, according to Frank. But in that case, then it can't be part of like the sort of formal fundraising for the sustaining fund. I just want to clarify that that's the case. So that's the first thing. And then second, Mr. Tanner, I don't know if you feel comfortable talking about this, but I'd love to hear about the way in which teachers think about the animals as embedded in the Waldorf curriculum or not, or how sort of integral they are to the Waldorf campus.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. I suppose that's unique to every Waldorf school. Every Waldorf school has its own flavor, and the animals are certainly a part of the Desert Marigold fabric. And so it really depends on each teacher how they choose to interact with the animals. So it's very individual. Some years we've interacted with animals, and some years, we have not. Bringing chickens into a classroom is a big deal, and sometimes teachers are tolerant of that, and sometimes they're less tolerant of that. It can be extremely disruptive. If you can imagine having a third or fourth grade with chickens in the back of the room, and you're trying to get them to move on when reading or learning their multiplication tables. It's depending on the teacher and the situation. It can be valuable, or it can be a distraction. But I do think that that the animals do provide character for the campus. I think they do help relieve a certain stress in the children, just having them there. And so this is a topic that's gone on for a long time. As long as I've been at this school, almost 20 years, I mean, the animals have always been there. In the old days, the teachers took care of the animals. There wasn't any animal care committee. I mean, we worked shifts, and we came in on weekends, and at one point we had goats, and the kids used to walk the goats around the campus, and those things are strong. I mean, and that's really, when Steiner talks about the animals, it's really that they feel the strength of an animal. You can read in there where Steiner talks about, and he's talking about children in a very metropolitan area in Stuttgart, that they need to get out there and feel the strength of a horse pulling a plow to the earth. That's a very different experience than feeding them carrots and sugar cubes and things like that. And I'm not saying that's exclusively what we're doing. So it's a big subject, and it really is individual to the teachers, and muck out the stalls. If you're going to have animals, they have to be cared for. And I was grateful that the 7th graders went out there and did that. I thought that was good for them to do that. But I don't know. It really depends on the year and on the class and the objectives of the teacher. So I don't know. Is that helpful, Ben? I hope that's some feedback.
Yeah, that's great. That's helpful. I just wanted to know, how the teachers in general felt about the way in which animals are sort of like being incorporated into class activities.
Yeah, sure. You're welcome.
I also
Okay, it
wanted
looks
to
like-
thank
Yep, go
Michelle for the presentation. It was really well put together. Thank you. And sounds like the mucking out might be useful for students that might need to be redirected or given some extra duties. You mentioned when the chickens age out of the coop, what's the average age for that?
It is generally 4 to 6 years. And this is the first chickens that have been hatched or that we've gotten since the 8th grade that just graduated was in 4th grade. They were the last ones before that to hatch chickens. So we really needed
replacements.
Yeah.
And are the horses helping with any of the mowing that is often needed on campus?
That was actually a discussion with Hector. They are helping with the agricultural field for sure. But we have also talked about with Hector making training them for plowing. And that could be a few different grades that help with that too. So they could have other uses than what they're doing right now.
And John, thank you for touching on the animal husbandry.
Absolutely. I agree. Thank you.
Hey, I just have a few questions. So I believe, and maybe Frank, you can give me one answer on this. Is our garden's part of our curriculum, right? And that is that part of our budget? And if the garden is part of the curriculum, and what distinguishes the animals to not be, why can't they be part of the curriculum? Could we figure out a way to put them in there? And are the sustaining funds, how come we can't put animal care in with the sustaining funds?
I'll start with question one. Is the garden part of our curriculum? I believe it is part of our curriculum, but just like the animals, I would answer the question the way John did. Some teachers take that more serious than others, depending on the grade level, depending on the time of year. They all try to incorporate and get out there once a week, once every 2 weeks, but that doesn't always come to fruition. I can also tell you I have never paid for any seed. I think the only things we have paid for have been repairs to drip lines.
And maintenance, right? I mean, Hector's in the garden all the time.
Yeah, but that's not his main job. He's actually considered a grounds person. And so his job description says that. I did want to tell you, I've had 2 other experiences with animals. Gilbert High has a full ag program. I was an assistant principal there. And Coolidge School District has a full ag program, and I was an assistant superintendent there. And no money goes to the animals for even those full ag programs where they raise newborns, and nothing for food, nothing for stalls. That's all fundraisers that the kids do and the community does. And
okay. Oh, we lost you.
We froze. And just to clarify, it's state money that we can't use on the animals. So as far as exactly, we can't use the state money, but we can still do fundraisers. I think as far as the sustainability, the sustaining fund that we're working on, I think we just need to be super clear and transparent with the community on what are those sustaining funds going to. Are they going to materials fees? Are they going to teacher salaries? And we can't blend it if we haven't been just crystal clear about it. So as long as we're fundraising, like the barnyard brunch, that's totally fine. We just can't use the state dollars for the animals.
Have we looked to see if there's any distinguishing difference since we're a charter school and not a full public school?
I haven't. I don't know if there's anything we can do to get accredited in some way.
And if the animals were to have therapy status, and I would hate to say this because I know that Ben and Mariah are so busy, are there grants that we can look into for therapy animals?
I don't think you can issue therapy I was even hearing that language before. You can't issue therapy animals to the general public. I think that would be without a clinician.
Okay.
That seems right. Seems like there would be some kind of restrictions there.
In that same vein, I mean, we basically are a tiny animal rescue. And has anyone ever tried to break the animal rescue portion, minus the chickens, because we raise the chickens and we bring more chickens in, but like there's all sorts of grants out there for animal rescues, like just like endless grants. I mean,
And
that
people
doesn't mean
drop
it's not a ton of
animals
work.
off. They drop animals off all the time. All the time.
So like, but a lot of those animal rescues require the organization to be like a special kind of like nonprofit and probably not part of the school. Like it would need to be a whole mess of work to set up a new org and have, you know, business plan and stuff like that around the animals. But I was wondering if has anyone ever tried that? Has that ever been talked about? I guess is kind of.
So from what I understand, there is a school down like pretty close by that has like an equine license, which is apparently like pretty difficult to get. So I guess one of the things that I'm sort of struggling with here and that I'd like to get clear about moving forward. I think that this is more of a technical issue than a substantive issue, maybe. Like, I am all for bringing the animals within the DMS budget. Kirsten, what you just said a moment ago, I've always understood that not to be the case, that because the sustaining fund would be raising money directly for the school, not for parent council, but for the school itself, that it just can't be included in the budget, not because we're not spending state money on it, but because we're a state entity and it's a budget that we're using officially as a state entity. So I'm just frankly confused about this issue. And from my perspective, like what we need is to have Monique and or Jessica just like come up with a plan for us about what to do with this. Like, are they going to be in the budget or are they not? If
we can't put them in the state budget that we upload, like this budget that we're going to look at this evening. They can't be their own line item as far as I understand it. We have to raise this. But that budget is for state. It doesn't include fundraising events. So it would just have to be separate.
It doesn't now, because all of the fundraisers that we do, none of that money goes to the school.
I
guess this is one of the things I'm confused about.
It does, because if you think about parent council, all the funds that they raise generally go back into the school in ways of like
teacher training.
They bought teacher training. One year they bought
$12,000 right now in teacher training.
Yeah, they bought stools for the science room one year, so it does technically go back to the school. I think we can't put it on our official budget that goes to the state for our charter. And I'm not suggesting that we need to incorporate that in our sustaining funds, but I think we probably need to come up with some kind of a game plan on maybe fundraisers that are animal care specific, because animal care actually doesn't sit under parent council. Parent council is its own committee, and then the animals are their own separate committee. Michelle just happens to have a big heart and head up both.
And I'd also like to say that, as you mentioned, sustaining funds is fundraising, not state funds. We're deciding, or the people who drew up the proposal are deciding where those funds are allocated. So if you decided to allow a percentage or a certain dollar amount to animal care, then you would just write that in your proposal if you so chose. I also wanted to ask on, Nellie, to your comment, Robinson Ranch does the therapy horses. Maybe they could be a good resource if you wanted to reach out to them on how they're doing that for their fundraising and offering the animals for therapeutic guidelines, or if that can even be a case. And also touching on Dan's point of the sanctuaries, maybe we should also get in contact with the sanctuaries to find out what their ruling is or what their structure is for funds and grants as well.
I think it's a good idea. Does anyone want to spearhead that? I don't mean to rush us off this topic, but we probably need to start moving on a bit. Maybe if we
I
have
can
more
work
to
on that
discuss.
I can work on that with Michelle and see what
That'd
we
be
can do in
great.
that regards to a sanctuary.
Kristen, I have a real quick question. Do we own the animals? Does DMS own the animals? Do we have liability? Like, are these our animals?
I believe they are. I'm not entirely sure. Frank, Michelle, do you know? I imagine they.
I have no idea if there is a lien on them, a bill of sale. I have no idea.
Licensing
No,
or
and
registration?
I'm thinking more so of I have animals on site. They're not mine. They're animals on site. So I have liability insurance to protect that I have animals on site. So I'm curious as far as where we land as far as responsibility of the animals in a liability stance and then a fundraising stance.
I know, like, you have to register your dog with Maricopa County and everything like that, and you take that on personally. None of the animals have to be registered, and so there's no like signing over that. When we got the horses from the rescue, it was not signed over or anything like that.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
No problem.
I will say, if I know the liability is on us, if an animal bit somebody, we could be held responsible for that. Not that that's happened, but we do take that liability on because we allow children to go play with the animals. We want them to.
Yeah, I'm a little shocked that the school wouldn't do that.
Okay, so Nellie, you are going to work on maybe some other avenues of status around where we might be able to get some funding or use funding for the animals, either whether it's a sanctuary or something of that nature. Did I understand that correctly? Okay, yep. Great. Were there any other follow-up or to-do items before we move on?
Frank, could you orchestrate somebody or someone to look into our liability insurance to see if we need to add a rider or something for animals on campus? So we're not.
It's already in ours. I already have
cool.
it.
Thank you.
Great. Well, good discussion, and we can certainly continue to discuss that as we need to. Moving on to our continued business section, I move to approve the meeting minutes from the June 1st, 2022 regular board meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? And abstaining? Thank you. Motion passes.
Did we get a vote from Ben?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Danielle. Ben, we didn't see your hand.
I raised my virtual hand.
Raised his virtual hand.
saw it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks. Great. Next up is our board survey update. Danielle and Dan, I know that you guys have been working on this. Did you have an update that you wanted to share with us this evening?
I unfortunately have not had time the last 2 weeks to work on it. I was doing some solo parenting while Jesse was in the US. I apologize. Hopefully this next 2 weeks I'll be able to take a day off work and spend some more time on it.
Okay.
As discussed in the last meeting, it was just sectioning out, condensing some of the questions, and being consistent with the verbiage, correct?
I believe so.
Okay, so I'm happy to finalize that. When's our next board meeting? Can we, if you would remind me, please?
Yes, it is on. Actually, thank you for bringing that up. We're actually scheduled for. Yes, okay. We're actually scheduled for July 20th. But given that we need to have our budget finalized prior to, we were going to, well, I guess I can just make the motion now. I move that we change our regularly scheduled July 20th board meeting to July 13th to accommodate for the vote on the budget.
Second.
Dan, thank you. All those in favor? Or any discussion? Sorry. Any other discussion? No. Okay. All those in favor? Great. And Ben?
Sorry, that was a vote for yes.
Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Great. Motion passes. We'll go ahead and move that. Thank you. Okay. Now, we kind of had already jumped into this a bit, but we'll go ahead and continue the conversation in more depth on the 2022-2023 development proposal update, and I will turn it over to Sophie and Ben.
Kirsten, can I back up just to the survey real quick?
Sure.
So to have everyone's approval by the July 13th, when would you like it for final review? What day would be good for everyone? How much time?
48 hours seem fair for everyone? Maybe that Monday the 11th? Does that seem reasonable?
I would say maybe a little bit longer for you all, like maybe 5 days.
The 6th?
Yeah, I mean, I want as much time as anyone as possible, but I think you need more than 2 days to slot in an hour to sit down and really think about it and review it and have comments.
The 7-8 work. I won't be, I don't know if I'll be able to do it by the 6th, but does the 8th work?
8th works for me. Anyone else? Great. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to the development proposal update. Sophie and Ben.
So we'll try to be quick about it because we looked at this last board meeting. The three big changes to the proposal that's in the drive are, one, we softened the language around 100% commitment to the sustaining fund, just to be clear that we're not expecting every family to give the suggested annual donation of $1,500, just that we want 100% participation at any level. That's the goal. The second thing is to have also changed the language around the development of the fundraising calendar. So it now says the board of directors and parent council have collaborated to create this calendar, and any fundraising activity additions to the calendar below should be approved by the board of directors. So we got rid of the language about pre-approval. And then the big one is that the calendar is actually fully fleshed out. So thank you, Michelle and Laura, for working with us to create a full fundraising calendar for the year. And the hope is, not to have stuff pop up spontaneously during the year, but to sort of stick to the calendar. And that's what we're hoping to vote on tonight. I mean, one thing that I'm still confused about that I guess we'll have to come back to, Kirsten, what you just said about fundraising, frankly, threw me for a loop a little bit. From what I understand, all of the fundraising that happens right now does not go directly into the school, is not counted as school revenue because it goes through parent council. That's part of the thinking, from what I understood. Perhaps this is wrong, in creating different bank accounts for parent council, which is all great. I think that the hope, though, is that the sustaining fund would be a line. It wouldn't be state fundraising, but it would be fundraising that's included as a line in our budget. And because it would be fundraising directly for the school rather than for parent council. That's something maybe that we need to revisit in some technical thing that I'm not understanding. But those are the three changes. Sophie, did you want to add anything?
Thanks for the update, Ben. I do want to add that I have been meaning to also change the verbiage a little bit around our first priority, teacher retention. I've had conversation with faculty about this, and just want to recognize that teacher retention is a much larger conversation than just offering more money. So we are going to change that language a little bit, and we'll let you know when that gets updated, but we did want to make that change in the near future.
Thank you.
Sophie, if I may ask, you said you had a discussion with faculty. Was it a faculty voice, or was it everyone from faculty? Was anyone left out?
I've met with the LDC, and then I've met with individual faculty members as well.
Would you say every?
But not as a whole. I'm sorry.
Would you say every single one, or was there anyone left out?
I have not met individually or with the group as a whole. No.
So about how many would you say?
How many teachers are on the LDC?
No, that you spoke with.
I would say.
Repeat that again, please.
2 or 3.
Okay. Thank you, Sophie.
I have a few questions. What was the percentage, and that maybe Frank knows this number, that we, or if you guys have been looking into this, what's the percentage that we've collected before in material fees?
Are you the percentage of families who pay their consumables fees, or
Yeah,
is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
It's not a lot. I'm not sure if I'm at liberty to share exactly the amount
Okay.
in a public forum, but it's not a lot. And I would probably guess, I mean, if we were looking at the donations that came in through tax credits and our consumables fees, almost all of them were restricted. So everything is like directed to an individual cause or student.
And so this number of $1,500 per student, that includes consumables and class trips?
Not class trips. Consumables, yes, but class trips, what we're hoping to do to fund those is to direct tax credit donations to classes. So what the campaign will be next year is we are encouraging families to donate as much as they can through the tax credit donation to either their child or children's individual classes. And then that should create hopefully a nice buffer. One for their field trips, just their day trips, like, that have the $20, $40 fee. And then eventually the larger trips like pentathlon and medieval games and the 8th grade trip.
Okay. So it seems like based on our previous conversation, we're acknowledging that there's animals on the campus and that they need to be funded. So if this is the calendar, does that mean that Animal Care can still put fundraisers on this calendar, correct?
Michelle was offered to host an Animal Care fundraiser as Animal Care coordinator at our meeting last week, and it was declined.
Michelle declined to have a fundraiser, or the board?
I don't ever remember declining a fundraiser for the animals.
I know Ben offered to do, to you guys, the Animal Care can host another spring fundraiser like they did with the Barnyard Brunch, or just a fundraiser like the Barnyard Brunch. But if I remember correctly, there was more of a concern that they weren't written into the permanent school budget as a line item.
That was a concern, that they're not written not in the school budget, that they're not written into the funds like at all. But when Laura handed the calendar over, she said, "This is the parent council fund calendar. Mm-hmm. This does not include the Animal Care ones that we have talked about for actually the fall and possibly a spring.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't remember hearing that when Laura handed me that paper, because we discussed animal care prior to that discussion, the parent council calendar.
So I think this was part of the broader confusion over where precisely animal care lies. It's sort of like nebulously in between a lot of things, and so I'm still frankly confused about like where it goes. I think that one of the things that we're trying to figure out is whether or not it can go in the budget. So that was sort of like left hanging. But if it's not in the budget, which it seems like that's what we're tentatively settling on, then yes, we should put it on the calendar somewhere else in that document, so that those are those should be definitely added to the document.
And then for parent council, they have the winter market and then the spring fair, right? Those are the two big fundraisers for parent council.
I think everything in blue is parent council, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're
and
correct.
I printed
okay.
it.
Oh, that's no. I think their meetings are on there. The bake sales, I think they're helping with. Michelle, keep me honest there. If it's more for those are more class driven.
Those are class supported. Those are class bake sales. They do not go to parent council. They go directly to the classes. We just are putting a sign up together so there are not multiple classes having bake sales. We're just organizing it. It's just like we organize class reps to do things. We're organizing bake sales.
Okay, so the only things then that I see for the fundraisers then are those two events, the winter fair. I'm sorry, I just wasn't here last meeting. So
no, that's okay.
And because like the school, the 40th day, that's not a fundraiser. That's where people are donating and giving money or giving food in, right? To have burgers and for the kids to have lunch. And the same with the potato bar. People are donating all the food for that. So that parent council is not putting that money out. So then they're doing so those two fundraisers, I just want to make sure those two fundraisers enough money, because is parent council then are they still going to have to pay for teacher training next summer? And or is teacher training going to come out of this sustaining fund?
That has not been decided yet. I think that would be a Frank question.
Okay, because that's a big bill.
Yeah.
I also missed the restaurant fundraisers, or is that just going to be as they're scheduled?
I believe those are going to be added as they're scheduled. That the calendar that you're looking at is the exact calendar that I was given, that Laura gave to me.
So when Animal Care decides on what two fundraisers are going to have, then we can put them on the budget, given we don't, right? I mean, not on the budget, sorry, on the calendar. They can be put on the calendar.
They'll have to be carefully planned because right now everything is pretty balanced the way that we're creating these asks. So it would just have to be something that has to be collaborated on as a whole.
Okay, so what about, there's material fees, there's this $1,500. What if we can just say another checkbox that says $50 per family once a year, because there's about 180 families, that'll give Animal Care right out of the gate then the money they need, like $9,000.
I mean, that's a good question. I think and I guess you weren't here last week, Nellie, so apologies if I'm repeating myself or what Ben was saying last week. But the 3 priorities that we have in the development plan were created after having discussions with Parent Council, the LDC, and Frank. And the 3 priorities that are in that plan is where we saw the most overlap. So I'm not really sure. I don't know, Ben, do you have any thoughts?
So is it we're not sure where the animals lie?
And that's the discussion that we've been having for a while now.
Yeah, I mean, so just to reiterate what Sophie was saying, the three priorities were points of overlap. Sorry, Ziggy. They're not meant to be, comprehensive by any means. They were just the sort of three things that sort of came up in every conversation. And, just from looking at it, they seem like important priorities, especially the number of teachers and staff that we've lost this year, not only because of financial considerations, but because of them in part, at least. I guess I would just like to get clear whether or not it is the board's concern to be raising money for the animals, and if it is, then it should be the board's responsibility to raise money for the animals. So I'm all for that. I just think that if it's in our purview, it's in our purview, and if it's not in our purview, then it's not in our purview. So I think that's just a technical question. I'm still just kind of confused on it, in all honesty.
I don't think the board needs to be in charge of raising money for the animals. I just don't want the animals to be forgotten.
But this is a fundraising plan that the board's planning to execute, though.
Yeah.
Right, but it seems like if anything wants to be added, it has to get board approval.
Right.
So if Michelle wants to have a fundraiser in the fall for the animals specifically, then does she have to come to the board and get approval for that?
So the calendar doesn't dictate where the funds are, what the funds are being raised for, right? The sustaining fund, and again, so Kirsten, what you said sort of threw me for a loop, so I'll have to go back and figure this out. But from what I understand, the hope is to create a line in the budget. It's not unofficial. It's a line, and the money that we raised for that goes to that. It's part of the revenue for the school. And if we're doing that and also raising money for animal care in the same process, I don't know if that's kosher if we're saying that animals are not part of that fundraising. I mean, if we just say we want to put it on the calendar, right, that means that it's just that we're just collaborating on a calendar so that we can space out events, and then the animal care committee can do the fundraiser and we know when it's going to happen. But that's not money that we're not going to be organizing the fundraiser. We're not going to be planning it. We're not going to be, that money's not going to go to the sustaining fund. So that's I guess why I think that from what I understand, again, although again, I think I need to revisit this. From what I understand, I think the best thing to do is to just put 2 animal care fundraisers on the calendar.
And Ben, have you reached out to Monique at all to ask her that distinction? I mean, I hear you say you're confused about it. But
let Frank and I do that, because we're already talking. Yeah. We're already restructuring a lot of accounting processes with them.
That'd be excellent.
So Frank, in our next kind of meeting with Monique and Aspire, let's make sure I'm going to make a note.
So the sustaining funds would be, again, a fundraiser. And so just to get that clear distinction, to clear up Ben's
confusion. And if we can put that as an official budget item.
And not a budget item, it would be added for the sustaining fund fundraiser for that proposal.
Danielle is correct. Danielle is correct. If we are fundraising for it, that is different than taking state monies and allocating it from the state to a budget line for animals. That's a different topic altogether. That's a no-no. The sustainability fundraising, or what Michelle's been doing with separate animal fundraising, can get around it. But don't confuse that with money that comes from the state that we now say, take 12,000 out and feed the animals. That's not going to fly with lots of people.
No, I think what we're trying to determine is, can we put the sustaining fundraising efforts that we're proposing here on the budget as a budget line item that we upload to the state, is that the right thing to do? And the animals, are we able to budget fundraising money for them, not state money? And also more than that, where do the animals lie? Is that board responsibility? Is that something that falls more under, sounds like it used to be teachers, and then, parents came and helped out. So I think we just need to define where the animals lie in the structure of the school, and then where the ultimate responsibility is. Did I capture all that correctly, or was there more?
Great.
Yes.
I do think too that if you're going to consider writing the animals into the sustaining fund budget, I would strongly suggest pulling every teacher and seeing how relevant the animals are to their individual curriculums. Are they willing to fund those through the sustainability fund, really? Because the top two priorities that we have in this plan are to really benefit the teachers and the students. And so I would just hope that we can see that they're fully funded first.
Yeah, maybe that's blending too many things. I think.
I mean, I was just basically asking to be able to make sure we can have, 2 fundraisers for the animals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Nellie, no.
I think we just need structure.
And
We
Nellie,
just need to put structure around it.
I agree with Nellie. Can we just do the baby step of allowing the fundraisers to be placed in the calendar, and then let Frank and Kristen decide where they land, as well as, from my understanding last meeting, the parent council is becoming its own entity. So I feel like there's a lot of movement that's happening. We can land wherever we want now, but it's going to shift once everything gets reaffirmed. So I'm wondering how Michelle feels and the board about just landing on allowing the animal fundraisers to be on the calendar.
and Nellie, is
Very
it too
different
soon
than-
to ask you? Oh, excuse me.
No, sorry, go ahead.
No, Nellie, is it too soon to ask you for a commitment on what days you would want to do something?
I would have to talk to Michelle on what she wanted to, I think that the brunch worked well. I would like to push it a little closer into April. And something in the fall. So-
If you do want to add things to the calendar, will you loop me in on that? Just because, like I said before, everything right now is pretty balanced and measured, and the asks that we're making. And I know we talked a lot about the ask fatigue that the community feels pretty often. So as long as we can temper that, I think it's great. But according to our last meeting, our private meeting with Jessica too, Nellie, to go back to your point of, does the board have to approve it? I believe we were told that legally the board does need to approve every fundraiser. So it would need to be approved after. Where it lands on the calendar is fine, but I think it just has to be approved in itself.
Where do your concerns, I can see with animal care for ask fatigue, but where else do your concerns lie with ask fatigue?
So the sustaining fund campaign and the tax credit campaigns themselves are happening through 6 different phases. So There will be, we're doing 3 tax credit drives and 3 sustaining fund drives. And it's just making sure that we're not overwhelming with communication of we're asking for your sustaining fund contribution and we have this $50,000 goal in this 3-week period or whatever. Just making sure that then we're not throwing in and we're doing an animal care fundraiser and we have a $10,000 goal, and just to avoid any chaos and just the fatigue really of having too many asks. So I'm not saying at all that it can't happen.
But that's not like angel room donations or anything like that, right?
No, I think
but
they're
also
separate.
we are going to be collaborating with the whole all of the marketing and communication with parent council as well, just to make sure that we're not doubling up and creating any overwhelm. That makes sense.
I guess my last comment would be, because I'm getting a little fatigued on the conversation.
Agreed.
We have to move forward. This isn't this isn't a fighting for one's place. This is, Michelle and Sophie, would you guys be willing to reconnect to land those 2 dates, and then we continue to move forward? There's no other debate besides moving forward instead of, I don't want us to get trapped in the back and forth.
No, absolutely. The calendar dates that I've received are the ones that you see. I haven't received any other dates or requests for any events.
So I can go ahead and motion to get this through, but Mr. Tanner, I've been seeing your hand going up. Do you want to get in before I do so?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I just wanted to recognize, as Sophia said earlier, and I can't help, there still is this sort of pedagogical question of really where the animals are. I mean, I know all of you, think it's cute and wonderful, and it is, and I'm not against it, but the teachers really haven't had, if they all say, hey, we're all behind the animals and let's do it, and then I think that would build more of a sense of unity here, and it wouldn't feel this conversation wouldn't feel quite so awkward. That's the way that's my feeling about it right now. Is it feels very awkward because I don't think there's really a collaboration behind that, and that's something at a Waldorf school that you really want to be careful, is that you're building consensus, and I think that's what's leading to some of the fatigue and awkwardness in this conversation.
So I guess I'd like to go ahead and motion that we move forward with the 3rd section as written, but with the amendment that 2 animal care fundraisers will be added to the calendar at a later date.
Dan, it looks like you're seconding. Thank you. Any more discussion?
I would like to ask Mr. Tanner on the pedagogical approach. What would be sufficient to provide for you for the curriculum edition?
I just would like to hear more from the teachers what their position is. I certainly don't presume to speak for them in that capacity.
So you want to know their position, not so much on the pedagogical influence into the Waldorf curriculum?
No, I want to know what they feel. The teachers are the pedagogy, and I want to know what their position is regarding the animals. It may be 100%. Everybody says, "Hey, this is a great thing. Let's do it. Let's move forward." And I think we would all feel a little better if we had that information, and again, to build consensus around it. Every teacher says, "Hey, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread." Then let's have it, and we'll all sleep better. But it feels really awkward because it seems to be a level of uncertainty. So that's where I'm going with it, Danielle. I'm not trying to create friction, but rather to extinct it.
Oh, and I wanted to understand what the source would be, so I appreciate that. And so that would be early childhood, the grades and specialties.
And I would say high school.
And high school, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So should we send out a survey? I know that surveys haven't in the past been terribly well.
You want me to add it to the one that's going out for July 8th?
No, because that's going to community and it's board executive director. I don't want to add animals onto it. Or is there?
I would be happy to just email all the teachers and to collect that information to report back next time.
Mr. Tanner, do you think that would be a good way to try to gather the thoughts of faculty and staff, or of faculty?
I think it's what we have at the moment.
Okay.
So, I think it can be done very simply for an inter organizational review or memo or survey, whatever the terminology is for that. It could be done pretty quickly.
And then if you could make sure that animal care is copied, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
What is the question we're asking the staff?
The question is, what would be your interpretation of the animals as it fits into the pedagogy at Desert Marigold?
So now there's an open-ended answer there. We're not getting yes or no's type of thing.
Well, it is open-ended, because my answer is going to be different from every other teacher at the school. And
I just know that
that's just,
I want to be careful how we ask, because
Sure.
if we ask, do you believe budget monies should be used on the animals? The answer is going to be no, because that means that's less money that goes to the classroom. I know they're going to say that. But if that's not the question, if the question is, do you believe utilizing the animals in teaching the Waldorf curriculum is important? I think you're going to get more people say yes to that answer, to that question. So we have to be careful what we're asking.
Ben, Frank, and Michelle, do you guys want to maybe craft that email together so that we can make sure it's, and Mr. Tanner as well, so that you can, that you guys can make sure it's crafted in a way that is gathering the information that we're hoping to receive?
Yeah, my suggestion, my raised hand, was to also have the presentation of what I just gave, basically, because we have new teachers, we have teachers who know that there's 2 horses, a pig, and goats, but don't know what goes on or anything about stuff. So
okay. And I feel like that's a little separate from
Couldn't the slides just be sent on? I feel like if you're asking to do a presentation, it's just a lot. Teachers are doing training right now. They've got a bunch of stuff coming up before school starts, but I don't think it's an imposition to just move over the slide deck and say, here's some information about the animals and ask a question.
Right. I mean, my thought was to redo it with either having words on it, more words of what I said, or doing a quick 15-minute presentation, like myself, and sending that over to them.
So just because there's
Can I say something real quick, because I have my hand.
Mariah, Sophie, then Ben, and then let's try to vote on our motions on the table.
I think the intention is wise and good. My stomach is literally turning. I think it would be incredibly unfortunate if we put this debate on blast when this is one of many things that people want to fundraise for, and we're polarizing animal care, to decide whether we're going to care for them or not. This school, though I do not think, and I am concerned about where it's landing, this school, and I'm not going to be a board member that's going to take away the animals. The school has always had animals, and I think we continue to have this debate of one or the other. I literally want to be asked all school year to give my portion, which Sophie has. I also want to be given information about giving to animal care, to field trips. It's not one or the other. And so I fear if we put this debate, and if for some reason we land on teachers saying, we don't really care, are we really going to position ourselves of removing ourselves from really loving our animals and wanting to fundraise? So I think we're coming at it in a really interesting way that I would caution of we're deciding and picking, when I've said since the beginning, we do not have to pick. We can do both. There's no, and we're talking about animal care. We all love those animals. It doesn't matter if they're in the curriculum or not. Again, I want to be asked to pay for my fees, and I want to be asked to pay for animal care. That's it. And I think as a group, we can really do both without pulling out the butcher block to decide what we care about and what we don't care about.
Thank
So,
you, Mariah.
So Mariah, to that point, I mean, wouldn't it be, so considering that, in my mind, it would be great if we could have the animal care fundraisers during the year, because then we could have both, and then we wouldn't have to put this debate in front of our faculty and put it on them necessarily. But I think if we were to write it into the sustainability fund priorities, the faculty probably should have a say in it. Like Mr. Tanner was saying, I mean, there's a lot of just what do they want? How do the teachers feel about it? We don't even know.
So I was just going to say that maybe Michelle, myself, and Mr. Tanner can collaborate on something that maybe gets the temperature of where teachers stand on this issue, but that this is separate from the motion that's on the table. So provided we're okay with that plan, I'd like to return to the motion that's on the table.
Any other discussion?
Well said, Mariah. Good input. And thank you, everyone.
Great. All those in favor? Okay. Ben, and you have your hand raised. I'm sorry, I see that now. Thank you. Any opposed? Are there any abstaining? Okay, motion passes. All right. Now on to new business. Our budget. Monique has sent that out to us. I believe that was last week that she sent that out. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to review it. And were there any anyone that has reached out maybe with questions that have not gotten them answered, or any commentary on the proposed budget for the next year? No? Okay. So I'll go ahead and move that we will to approve preliminarily at this first phase of the budget, that we all are in agreement, and that will be our budget for the upcoming school year. Oh, I didn't say that well, April. Do you want to? Jumbled it there at the end.
I wrote something for you, and I should have sent it to you. Want me just to? You want me just to
Yes,
do the motion?
please.
Okay. I was trying to capture what you were saying in what I had already written. Okay. I move to approve the proposed budget for year 2023.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? And Ben, I saw your hand raised. Thank you. Any abstaining? Great, motion passes. Now we'll go on to proposed motions. I have two that I had on the budget or on the agenda. The first is I move to approve the roof repair for the third grade, fourth grade, and high school science rooms in the amount of $13,930 as per Frank sent us that quote.
It's Mariah, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Great. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Thank you. Motion passes. All right. The next motion is for the air conditioner in fifth grade, the fifth grade air conditioner. So I move that we approve the air conditioner replacement in the fifth grade for $8,896 as per the quote we received from Frank. Mariah, thank you. A second. Any discussion?
Kristen, I abstained from the wrong proposal. Is it possible to retract my abstain and approve the roof? I'll be abstaining from the AC.
April, did you catch that?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the rules are. I think we should just finish this one. Maybe we can just revote.
It passed.
Well, yeah,
anyway.
the motion passed. Okay.
Okay. Thanks. All right. Any other discussion on the air conditioner? Okay. All those in favor? Great. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Thank you. Great. Motion passes. And on to the announcements. I'm going to go ahead and make that change since we voted to move the July 20th meeting to July, let me double check, 13th. So we will go ahead and meet on July 13th, and I will send out the agenda as per usual on the 12th for us to add any items, or please feel free to send them to me in advance. And Nellie, I had put you on the closing verse to please read, but I didn't actually call it out. Would you please read the closing verse after we've adjourned the meeting? Thank you. Okay, and with that, I move that we adjourn our June 15th board meeting.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, motion passes. And Nellie, if you would read the closing verse for us, please. Oh, we can't hear you. It doesn't look like you're muted, but we can't hear you. This is full of technical difficulties today. I'm sorry.
I'm happy to read it. I've got it pulled up. Nellie, you want me to do that? Okay.
Nellie, we'll catch you next time. Thank you.
We are filled with technical difficulties tonight. Okay. The most important tasks for humankind today and in the future is that we should learn to live together and understand one another. If this human fellowship is not achieved, all talk of development is empty. Rudolf Steiner.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It was a long meeting. It was productive.
Good night, everybody.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks all.
Good night.
Take care.
Good night, everybody. Thanks.